I think something that's pressing on everybody's mind today is really the political climate that's in America as well as the rest of the world. I mean, we are facing probably the most difficult economic crisis, definitely in my lifetime. There doesn't seem to be there's a quick solution, which I think a lot of people seem to expect. First of all, we did not get to this position where we are with our deficits and imbalances and budgets and stuff like that in 3 years. This happened over a course of a couple of decades. So the pressure that seems to be coming from the society, and particularly that is being administered on our first African American president, President Barack Obama, I think is unjustified. He is the president of one of the best countries in the entire world, and instead of supporting him, he gets a lot of opposition from some of his own members, as well as the opposition, the Republican Party, and I think they have made his ability to get things done completely very, very difficult. They don't understand his style, and I can tell you firsthand as a black man, we don't do and see things exactly the way the average person does. He is unique because he is biracial, but nonetheless, I know they look at him as a black man, and I know this because of the awful derogatory things people have been said, and they get away with it, like calling him tar baby, which I think is disgusting, or inquiring about his birth certificate when, in fact, when a person runs for the president of this country, and this is common knowledge, they are vetted, so you have to have all this information detailed and documented. So that was done before he ran for office. So why are they asking about his birth certificate? It only borders on one thing. It's racism. And then they say, oh, you're playing a race card, you're playing a race card. But it is, in fact, the truth. It really is, in fact, true. And it really saddens me that we've come to this time in history, and the only thing we're still basing things on are people as a person's color, not by their ability to do things or to try to get things done. And what he's trying to do really is to make this country a better place. And what's going to be the sad reality is that regardless if he is reelected or not, when his term is over, people are going to realize just how much he really has accomplished, in his time in office. And hopefully he'll be appreciated. And it's not the first time. It's the same thing happened with Bill Clinton, too. So, which happens to be his birthday today. He's 65 years old today. Happy birthday, Bill. So, I mean, that's amazing. More on political. I mean, we just really had the most obnoxious situation with this debt ceiling being passed, which it was clear exactly what was happening with the conservatives. We have this element now in Congress and Senate that are these Tea Party members who their only objective seems to be is to make President Obama a one-term president, which it's okay to have your objective, but they are there to represent the American people. And what happened, which is very clear, that they were not there doing their job. I mean, because we almost defaulted. We do not have a AAA credit rating anymore, and I blame them for this. I do not blame the president, I blame them. The president does not make the bills. They do. He ratifies and passes them. So they're the ones to be blamed for the situation we're in, not him. And I wish people would realize and think clearly and see where the problems are. And I do believe that a lot of Americans are, because I've seen polls on Gallup poll and even in the New York Times where people are really very dissatisfied with their representatives now. And I think that they should be punished for it. What I mean by that is that they shouldn't be reelected. I know personally I have called my senators and my House of Representatives and explained my dissatisfaction with their behavior, how they handle the situation that they're still in. In particular, we're in a crisis here in this country, and it seems like in the last administration they raised the debt ceiling over 8 times, and there was never a question. So why has it become such a difficult time now? I mean, why do we expect everything to change so rapidly, or be so resistant to do things when, in fact, it really is necessary? This country did not get to this point without the extravagant greed, recklessness that occurred in Wall Street, and lots of financiers, and I won't say real estate so much, but I'm just saying, but there were a lot of, it dovetails on real estate, because what happened, you had these very, very wealthy people who were buying properties because they had the access to the funds to do so, which initially and eventually drove prices up for the average person for an apartment here in the city. And I know firsthand it is impossible to find an affordable apartment here in this city. I mean, I've been looking for almost 7 years, and with no luck. There's all these loopholes, and it just really has become a checks and balances for the haves and have-nots. And to that point, I wanted to touch base on the current situation that's happening in England. Now, they've been having riots there. And I won't necessarily say that they are racially motivated, but what is occurring from reading and also listening to different talk shows, there was recently a gentleman who, I can't think of his name right now, but it was a panel on, and he made a statement that the whites were acting like blacks in London, which I found extremely derogatory, as well as other people there. Because, in fact, having lived in London, I can tell you now, London has a class system there. And this is primarily amongst the whites initially, but that changed when they acquired a minority population, which were particularly most often from the West Indies, and also the Indians, which have moved into Britain and comprise quite a sizable population there now. So what you have in England, you have a large population of disenfranchised young people, and I'll give you a fine example. They can't find jobs. The educational system, which had always been free, recently they want to start charging for that. So you take a young person who comes from a very poor family, who didn't have to pay to go to college. Now they're forced to pay to go to college. They won't have the opportunity to go to college now. So these are the reasons why I see that these riots are taking place there, because these young people are angry, and they have every reason to be angry because they don't see any justification for their future. Now, those type of things are beginning to brew here too. This is what it kind of dovetails on the political atmosphere, but money is getting tight for what I call the working poor. We do not have a middle class in America anymore. I can say that firsthand. I was a middle class person, and I can say now that all I see myself doing is struggling to pay my bills to make ends meet. And, there are less opportunities, especially for mature people. And, the only things that seem to be available are really low-paying retail jobs. So they keep talking about job creation. Yes, we need that, but the type of jobs that have been created have been, low-paying retail jobs, which you can't really sustain yourself on those in a city like New York City. So, I don't know what the solution is, but I can only surmise, and I say this sadly, that the type of situation that's happening in Britain is eventually going to happen in America as well, because people, there was a song once, "Don't Push Me Because I'm Close to the Edge." Well, we're being pushed to the edge now. And, there was a movie years ago called Network, and they screamed out the window, "I'm mad as hell and I can't take it anymore." It's going to happen again, but this time it's not just going to be people screaming out of it. They're going to be throwing things out of the window, and they're not going to be throwing them at each other. They're going to be throwing them at the people who are running this country and who are really destroying it. I listened to this morning to Donald Trump talk about who his opinion about the Republican nominees who are running for president office, and so he put his 2 cents in, and I really irritates me that because he happens to be a millionaire, and that people give him so much credibility. Me personally, I don't really see anything that he's contributed, to society at large, other than having luxury hotels in very bad taste. Actually, they were built, and so I just see him as a pompous, stubborn, arrogant ass. I have a lot more respect for someone like Mayor Bloomberg, who recently was on TV, who really addressed the issue of what's taking place in this country, and commended our president, which the president does need to be commended on handling situations in such bad times. On the other hand, he's getting 4 marks for his 3rd term in the city, and again, it has a lot to do with economics, and also too, Bloomberg is a smart businessman. He really is, and I think that this city is not a business per se, but you really have to realize that you're dealing with a human element in the city, and that everything can't be checks and balances and black and white on paper. To that point,